Hi YouTube, this is part 3 of the tools of the trade for detangling video series. I ended the last one talking about my experience with detangling my hair and how I forgot in the midst of just really being confused about why my hair was so tangled up on this side. I just started, just gently trying to force the strands apart. But what I really should have done was spritz that section wet again and start working through it with the damp hair. The reason why I didn't have problems in the back is because it was soaking wet, but by the time I got to this section, it was dry. So I would encourage, at the time I wasn't prepared, and maybe if this had been within my reach, a spritz bottle had been within my reach, I would have reached for it and done that. So before you start working on your daughter's hair, make sure you have your tools accessible to you. You're always going to need water, more water, because we like to work with the damp hair. You're going to need water. You may need an oil and water mixture if your daughter's hair doesn't like conditioner. One of my daughters, her hair doesn't like conditioner. If I try to do leave-in conditioner or a diluted conditioner solution, if I try to put that on her hair, it dries to this chalky, dusty consistency, and her hair doesn't look good at all. So I don't use that on her hair. So as you experiment, and you know, that's one way to identify what works for you and what doesn't. Do you like how your child's hair looks? Does it make her hair look duller? We know that we're not expecting nappy hair to be shiny like straight hair, but it does have a pleasant gleam to it. You'll learn as you go through the process how what the hair looks like depending on what you do. You'll learn which ones you like better and what to do and what not to do. And so for me, if this had been accessible when I was going through that little episode with my hair last night, I would have just spritzed plain water, would have probably done it for me. And then another thing I said when I was doing my washing video is that, I do all my detangling during the wash and then I braid it up, and then when it's time for styling, I don't detangle anymore. And that's true, but you may at times encounter a section of hair that, I don't know if you missed it or if it dried and there was something in it or whatever, but it's not detangled enough for you to work with. And in a situation like that, I have my water bottle and I wet it again. And I'll start again with this time, wherever we're sitting to do the style, this is happening at styling time, I'll spritz it again. And it's a much smaller section that I'll be working with. And I'll start with my fingers, moving from the ends to the root. Then I'll pick up my Denman or whatever tool you've learned that works for you. And the same process that I used when I was detangling to wash, I'll do that again on the hair while I'm styling, keeping in mind that I'm not going to rinse, so I'm not putting a heavy amount of conditioner. If the child's hair doesn't like conditioner, I'm not using conditioner at all. I might be using oil and water, castor oil or whatever, maybe a little bit of shea butter, or to just detangle it again so that I can get my tool through. My goal is not necessarily to get the comb to slip through perfectly. My goal is to get all the shed hair out that I can, and I can get my tool through to do that horizontal part if I'm twisting or whatever style I'm doing. So that's one thing that you need to keep in mind. If you have all your tools ready, then when you have a glitch that occurs, you're not completely baffled and you're not ripping through your hair and damaging your hair to solve the problem. I also have different things that I use when I encounter a knot. Whatever works. That's my motto. Whatever works. I have this metal bobby pin, widely pronged, two-pronged bobby pin. If I encounter a knot, I might use this to, I might open it up and use it to pry through the hair to get it out. Notice that it doesn't have this bulb on the end. So sometimes I'll take that out so that it doesn't catch on the hair. This bulb is what I'm talking about. So that it doesn't catch on the hair and rip the hair out. Or sometimes I'll even use, the end of a straight pin, the ones you sew with. I don't have one here to demo, but you know, to get the hair out. But usually a bobby pin like this will work, or one of those goody plastic pins. I couldn't find one in time for the video. Or something like this, 3-prong pick. Whatever works, and making sure that, you know, it's smooth, it's perfectly smooth. I'm not going to put something jagged because it'll rip through the hair like scissors, you know. And sometimes I've discovered that if worse comes to worse, and I've tried everything and I can't get a knot out, it's better to just take a pair of hair cutting shears. I got these from Sally, and just cut that single solitary knot out instead of trying to rip through the hair and damaging a whole bunch of hair, you know, just for the sake of one knot. Sometimes it's better to just sacrifice that section and just snip, cut it out. Things that I use: ponytail holders to get the in particular the twist that I've already braided, to keep them out of the way. Sometimes I'll do a ponytail holder. This is made of nylon, like the pantyhose material. I like these from my daughters. They don't tend to snap as easily as some of the other ponytail holder. But you know, the most important thing is that there are no metal parts, because hairs can catch on those metal parts. So I use that when I'm detangling to get the hair out of the way. When my hair was shorter, I use the metal pick a lot. And even for my daughters, just to get through the hair, whatever works. This is a smooth metal pick. The teeth are widely spaced. It's not closely spaced together. This probably wouldn't be the first thing I would pick up. I'd probably use this like I use the Denman after I've already fingered, detangled, and then I'll use this to go over it again to smooth. We talked about clamps to hold the hair out of the way. Nothing worse than you're working on a section of hair that you're detangling, and then more hair falls into it, and then it gets all, that very tangled hair gets all matted up with the hair that you almost completely detangled, and then you have a mess, knots on your hand, and it causes frustration. And I know that I don't want to be frustrated, because frustration makes me rip through the hair. It makes me take shortcuts that cost my daughter hair. Makes her yell, cry, not want to sit still, not want to have their hair done. Most important thing is we want our daughters to have positive experiences with their hair. And we don't want to make them think of their hair as something that hurts or that they don't want to happen, because that's the quickest way for them to go look for a way to get rid of it when they have the means. And I know for me what that meant was relaxing my hair, using heat on my hair, and all that yielded was damaged hair, scalp problems. It really wasn't healthy, and I don't want that for my daughters. One thing that we didn't talk about that I wanted to mention was apple cider vinegar. I put that in a spritz bottle and use it as my final rinse with cold water. Well, not cold, but as cold as I can tolerate. And you know, it also, like conditioner, lays the cuticles on the hair strand down so that they slip and not snag onto each other when it's time for me to detangle. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. Just some of the things that I've learned and in trying to make detangling easier. Remember, don't marry your tools. Find what works for you. Try things. It's not necessarily because it was expensive that it's going to be better. And just don't be afraid to get out there and try some stuff. One thing to look for is people whose hair remind you of your daughter's hair that you're working with. All right? Take care and be blessed.